Have you ever wondered how anyone survived a medieval winter? No heaters, no electricity, just howling winds, icy floors, and a diet that barely kept you alive. Tonight, we're pulling back the frostbitten curtain on a time when survival wasn't guaranteed, when people had to outwit the cold with nothing but firewood, faith, and sheer will. Forget the romanticized tales of kings and knights. The real story? It's colder, harsher, and far more fascinating. Before we dive in, take a moment to like this video and subscribe, but only if you're the kind of person who enjoys stepping into the dark corners of forgotten history. And let me know in the comments, where in the world are you watching from? And what time is it for you right now? I love seeing how far this little time-traveling community stretches across the globe. Now, grab a blanket, dim the lights, maybe even crack a window if you dare, and let's step into the long, merciless winters of the Middle Ages. Congratulations, you've just woken up in the year 1347, and it's freezing. The candle flickers, and somewhere in the distant fog of memory, the world grows quiet. You are safe here. The fire is low, the winds have softened to a gentle hush, and the sky outside is a deep, endless gray, as though even the heavens are wrapped in wool and sleep. You have wandered into a story, not one filled with kings and castles, but one of simpler lives, of low wooden doors, rough wool cloaks, and quiet survival. You have arrived in a village forgotten by maps, by time, by the noisy beat of history, and yet it lived, it breathed, and its people endured. Tonight, you are invited not to learn, but to feel, not to race through facts, but to drift gently, through the cold mist of the Middle Ages, through thatched roofs and frozen soil, through smoky hearths and soft, coarse linens. You will not be a knight or a noble. Tonight, you are something far more human. You are a peasant, a quiet figure wrapped in homespun wool, a soul with calloused hands and a simple heart. You will spend a single day, perhaps even a single night, among them. You will walk through the frost-bitten mornings. You will eat their bread. You will listen to their stories, share their warmth, and you will try, if only softly, to understand how they survived the coldest nights. This story is not meant to wake you. In fact, you may not even reach the end, and that is perfectly fine. Let your body rest. Let your breath grow slower. If sleep arrives before the first light of dawn reaches the thatch above your head, then you have already done enough, and if, somehow, you remain awake, then I invite you to open a wooden door in your imagination. Step slowly through. Wrap yourself in the past. There is no danger here, no rush, only soft snow underfoot, only candlelight in the distance, only time enough to dream. This is not a tale of kings. This is not a tale of war or glory. This is the forgotten rhythm of daily life, the slow, steady breath of winter in the fields and forests of medieval Europe. And now, if you are ready, we will begin. A soft wind rises. The frost curls along the corners of the shutters. The village sleeps. And you are about to wake. A quiet figure wrapped in homespun wool. A soul with calloused hands and a simple heart. You will spend a single day, perhaps even a single night, among them. You will walk through the frost-bitten mornings. You will eat their bread. You will listen to their stories, share their warmth, and you will try, if only softly, to understand how they survived the coldest nights. You feel your fingers twitch beneath a blanket woven by hand, lumpy with coarse fibers. Beneath you, the mattress does not yield. It crunches faintly as you shift your weight. It is straw. Not quite clean, not quite fresh, but dry enough to hold your shape through the long winter night. The light is gray. Not silver, not gold. not warm or bright, but muted, like the sky is wrapped in linen. The room you lie in is more a shape than a space, its corners lost in shadow, its edges softened by the thin mist of breath and wood smoke. There is no glass on the windows, only shutters. One is cracked open, and a line of gray light cuts through. The haze landing on your feet. Your breath is visible. It curls softly as you exhale, as if your body is slowly waking the world around it. You pull the woolen blanket tighter. The fabric smells of earth and of smoke. Everything here carries the scent of the fire, even your hair, even your hands. Your shirt clings to you, a linen tunic, long and worn thin by many nights like this one. Your skin feels chilled beneath it, but not frozen. The fabric holds just enough warmth to remind you of your body, even as it resists the air around it. Your feet, bare for now, reach for something on the floor. A small pile of cloth, crumpled and stiff. Your stockings. You tug them on slowly, the wool scratchy and uneven. Your toes curl into them, grateful for the dull insulation. You find your shoes, nearby. Leather, stiff and muddied from many days of trudging. They are not comfortable, but they are familiar. You sit up. Your joints ache quietly. Not sharply, but like wood beginning to split beneath pressure. You are not old, but you have worked. And in this time, in this place, the body carries each winter within it. You rise slowly. There is no rush. The sun has not shown its face, and you know it may not. The sky often stays this gray for days, but time still moves. The village will stir. The animals will call for food. The bread must be baked. You step across the floor. The boards creak softly beneath you. Wide, uneven planks, worn smooth by countless bare feet. You pass the hearth. The fire is asleep now, but not dead. A few glowing coals blink quietly beneath a small heap of ash. You kneel beside them, your breath warming the air in front of your lips as you coax the embers with a bit of straw and a whisper of breath. There is a flint nearby. You strike it, once, twice. The spark catches. The straw flares for a moment, then settles. The flame returns, like a memory remembered just in time. The room grows golden for a heartbeat, then still again. This is your home. One room, one fire, a thatched roof heavy with frost. The walls are wattle and daub, wooden strips packed with clay and straw. They are solid enough to hold out the wind, but not the cold. Nothing here keeps the cold out completely. Instead, you learn to live alongside it, to warm yourself in pieces. You move toward the door. The latch is simple, carved from wood. You lift it, and the door groans as it opens. Outside, the morning waits. Your breath becomes smoke. The world beyond is hushed. The village is still asleep. You see faint trails in the frost-covered earth, footprints from yesterday hardened in the frozen soil. Chickens stir in their coop. Nearby, feathers fluffed against the cold. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. The sky is low and pale as wet wool. The trees at the edge of the village are bare, their branches sharp and black against the endless gray. A thin mist hugs the ground, curling around fence posts and carts left out from the night before. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. The wool has been patched many times. It smells of smoke, too, and of the sheep that once wore it. It wraps around you like a second skin, heavy, but trusted. Your breath comes slowly now, steady. Your body remembers this place. Your steps leave soft marks in the frost. The village begins to stir. A door creaks open somewhere nearby. A voice murmurs. A chicken squawks. A child coughs. The day is waking, and so are you. You are here. You are one of them. You survived the night, and now the day begins. A quiet figure wrapped in homespun wool, a soul with calloused hands and a simple heart. You will spend a single day, perhaps even a single night, among them. You will walk through the frostbitten mornings. You will eat their bread. You will listen to their stories, share their warmth, and you will try, if only softly, to understand how they survived the coldest nights. You feel your fingers twitch beneath a blanket woven by hand, lumpy with coarse fibers. Beneath you, the mattress does not yield. It crunches faintly as you shift your weight. It is straw, not quite clean, not quite fresh, but dry enough to hold your shape through the long winter night. The light is gray, not silver, not gold, not warm or bright, but muted, like the sky is wrapped in linen. The room you lie in is more a shape than a space, its corners lost in shadow, its edges softened by the thin mist of breath and wood smoke. There is no glass on the windows, only shutters. One is cracked open and a line of gray light cuts through. The haze, landing on your feet. Your breath is visible. It curls softly as you exhale, as if your body is slowly waking the world around it. You pull the woolen blanket tighter. The fabric smells of earth and of smoke. Everything here carries the scent of the fire, even your hair, even your hands. Your shirt clings to you, a linen tunic, long and worn thin by many nights like this one. Your skin feels chilled beneath it, but not frozen. The fabric holds just enough warmth to remind you of your body, even as it resists the air around it. Your feet, bare, for now. Reach for something on the floor. A small pile of cloth, crumpled and stiff. Your stockings. You tug them on slowly, the wool scratchy and uneven. Your toes curl into them, grateful for the dull insulation. You find your shoes, nearby. Leather, stiff and muddied from many days of trudging. They are not comfortable, but they are familiar. You sit up. Your joints ache quietly, not sharply, but like wood beginning to split beneath pressure. You're not old, but you have worked, and in this time, in this place, the body carries each winter within it. You rise slowly. There is no rush. The sun has not shown its face, and you know it may not. The sky often stays this gray for days, but time still moves. The village will stir. The animals will call for food. The bread must be baked. You step across the floor. The boards creak softly beneath you. Wide, uneven planks, worn smooth by countless bare feet. You pass the hearth. The fire is asleep now, but not dead. A few glowing coals blink quietly beneath a small heap of ash. You kneel beside them, your breath warming the air in front of your lips as you coax the embers with a bit of straw and a whisper of breath. There is a flint nearby. You strike it, once, twice. The spark catches. The straw flares for a moment, then settles. The flame returns, like a memory remembered just in time. The room grows golden for a heartbeat. Then, still again. This is your home. One room. One fire. A thatched roof, heavy with frost. The walls are wattle and daub, wooden strips packed with clay and straw. They are solid enough to hold out the wind, but not the cold. Nothing here keeps the cold out completely. Instead, you learn to live alongside it, to warm yourself in pieces. You move toward the door. The latch is simple, carved from wood. You lift it, and the door groans as it opens. Outside, the morning waits. Your breath becomes smoke. The world beyond is hushed. The village is still asleep. You see faint trails in the frost-covered earth, footprints from yesterday, hardened in the frozen soil. Chickens stir in their coop. Nearby, feathers fluffed against the cold. Somewhere in the distance, a dog barks once, then falls silent. The sky is low and pale as wet wool. The trees at the edge of the village are bare, their branches sharp and black against the endless gray. A thin mist hugs the ground, curling around fence posts and carts left out from the night before. You pull your cloak tighter around your shoulders. The wool has been patched many times. It smells of smoke, too, and of the sheep that once wore it. It wraps around you like a second skin, heavy but trusted. Your breath comes slowly now, steady. Your body remembers this place. Your steps leave soft marks in the frost. The village begins to stir. A door creaks open somewhere nearby. A voice murmurs. A chicken squawks. A child coughs. The day is waking, and so are you. You are here. You are one of them. You survived the night, and now the day begins. The cold teaches you many things: how to move slowly, how to wake gently, and how to wrap yourself in what little the world gives you. In this village, in this quiet life, clothing is not fashion. It is survival. Your tunic is made of linen, coarse, undyed, the color of dry straw. It was once softer, perhaps, but washing in cold water, scrubbing with ash, and drying in the smoke-dark rafters have hardened its threads. Still, it covers you. It hangs low to your knees, loose enough to layer, tight enough not to drag in the mud. Its seams are hand-stitched, a neighbor's work, or perhaps your own. Over this you pull your woolen outerwear. The wool is thick, rough-spun, and heavy. It clings to you with weight rather than warmth. It is not soft. It never was. But it shields you. It holds in the heat of your breath, the warmth of the fire, the muscle of your movement. The colors are muted: browns, grays, muddy greens, dyed from herbs and bark, faded by years of wind and smoke. Nothing here is vibrant. Nothing shines. Everything looks like it belongs to the earth. You wrap a sash around your waist, not tightly, just enough to gather the cloth, just enough to shape your body beneath layers. The fabric falls in folds around your legs, loose enough to walk, to bend, to kneel. Every stitch, every tear repaired not out of vanity, but out of need. A patch on the knee, a sleeve longer than the other. No one minds. Everyone is patched. Your shoes are leather, hand-stitched and stiff. They creak when you walk, especially in winter. You tie them with cords, not laces. The soles are worn thin in places, but they hold together. If they split, you mend them with scraps, or wait, or walk barefoot until you can. In colder weather, like this, you add more. Woolen hose pulled up to your thighs, a cloak draped across your shoulders, fastened with a simple clasp or just a knot, a cap for your head, shaped like a bag, long and drooping, stitched from old cloth. Or perhaps a hood that covers your neck and shoulders in one piece. It does not flatter, but it holds in warmth. The clothes smell of wood smoke, of soil, of sweat. They are not washed often, not out of carelessness, but out of scarcity. Soap is precious. Warm water is precious. Firewood is precious. So the garments hold stories. You can smell the weeks in the folds. You can trace the tasks done in each thread. You do not own many things, but you own these layers. They are your second skin. They change with the seasons. They age with you. And each morning, when you dress, you do not think of beauty. You think only of warmth. Your woolen cloak brushes softly against your skin. And for today, that is enough. The village moves in quiet rhythms, much like the forest or the wind. Not loud, not swift, but steady. And within that rhythm, there are small courtesies, unspoken rules that shape how one walks, how one speaks, how one listens. They are not written, but everyone knows them, and so must you. You rise each day not only with your body but with your bearing. You do not look the Lord in the eye unless he speaks to you first. You lower your gaze, soften your tone. Respect is not declared. It is demonstrated, with bowed heads, quiet voices, hands held still. There is no room here for loudness, for pride, for gestures that draw attention. The more silent you are, the more safe. When you pass your neighbors in the lane, you nod, slowly. You may lift a hand, but only to your chest, palm inward. It is not a wave. It is a soft recognition, a quiet agreement. I see you, and I will not trouble you. Greetings are brief. The language is plain. God give you good day, or simply, well met. You speak little unless there is work to be done, or something that needs sharing. When you are offered something, a heel of bread, a place near the fire, a moment's rest, you do not rush. You receive it with both hands, or with one hand pressed. To your chest, a small bow of the head. Gratitude is rarely spoken aloud. It is shown through gesture, through stillness, through presence. Children are taught to keep their hands folded, not idle, but controlled. When elders speak, the young do not interrupt. They wait. If they speak too soon, a look is enough. Sometimes just the shift of a mother's hand, resting gently on a wooden bench, is all it takes to remind them. Respect is measured not in words, but in patience. At table, if food is shared, you do not reach. You wait to be passed a piece or served. Bread is torn, not bitten into whole. Fingers are used, but never wiped on clothing. Always on cloth, if cloth is near. If not, on straw. Better the ground receive it than your sleeve. If you must speak in the presence of someone higher, be it priest or reeve or lord, you speak low and never first. You do not question openly. You do not correct. You accept. And if you cannot accept, you wait until they have passed out of earshot. Grievances, like secrets, are whispered or kept. Even the way you stand matters. You keep, your shoulders drawn in, hands before you or at your sides. No gestures that feel large. No movements that draw the eye. Manners are not for decoration. They are survival. A wrong glance, a careless word, a posture too proud, and your life can turn. Politeness is your shield. Stillness is your safety. So remember, bow your head before the Lord. Nod before your neighbor. Speak only when the moment asks for sound, and when in doubt, be silent. The wind speaks enough for all. The air inside the cottage is still, warm from the fire, heavy with the scent of ash, wool, and yesterday's bread. Outside, the day is moving forward, but here, in the quiet folds of domestic rhythm, the roles are already set. Not by law, perhaps, not always by words, but by repetition, by memory, by the 1,000 silent expectations woven into each breath of life. Men and women wake to different tasks. It is not often spoken, but deeply known. Men rise with the frost to face the earth. They lift, carry, chop, plow. They are the muscle that wrestles food from soil, that keeps fences mended, that tends to beasts and the burdens they pull. Their lives are spent outside, where weather becomes skin, and hands become tools. A man's day is long. He may not speak much of it, but by sundown his face tells every hour of the weight he bore. Women rise to fire and children. They do not walk far, but their world is just as wide. The hearth is their kingdom. They tend it like a flame inside the body, quiet and constant. They knead the dough, stir the pot, mend the tears, gather the herbs, sweep the floor, and hush the crying. They spin and weave and patch and fold. They carry water from the stream, often with infants strapped to their sides. Their hands are always moving, even in rest, and when the night comes, they are the last to sleep. There is no question of balance, only rhythm. These are the lines drawn not on paper, but in practice. A woman may not plow unless no man can. A man may not sew unless no woman lives to do it. But life sometimes bends the rules. A widow learns to patch leather. A boy may learn to mind goats and stir a pot if his mother is ill. The world makes room where it must. But still, the pattern holds. Children absorb these roles like sunlight. Girls play with rags, copying their mothers. Boys chase chickens, swing sticks like axes, learn the weight of things. Marriage is not a matter of choice so much as timing. A girl becomes a wife when her body tells her it can bear life. A boy becomes a husband when his hands prove they can feed one. And so, without anger, without rebellion, the wheel turns. No. One asks why the fire is the woman's to tend. No one asks why the field calls only the man. It is just the way of things. And the way of things is quiet, like snow falling evenly on both roofs. There is a quiet weight to the way the village breathes. You may not see it at first, but it is there. In who speaks first at the gathering, in whose door is wider, in who wears wool dyed a little darker, a little deeper than yours. The village is not equal. It never was. It rests like a ladder laid flat across the land, and everyone knows where they stand upon it. At the top, though you may never see them, are the Lord's. Their land is your life. You do not own the fields you till. You do not own the house you sleep in. Even your tools, in a way, belong to them. Their name is spoken softly, like a distant storm. They ride past sometimes, on horseback. Leather, boots, fur-lined cloaks, faces you cannot quite remember, and yet everything you do bends toward their will. Below them, the reeve, a villager like you, but chosen to keep the rules, to watch the grain stores, to mark who owes labor and who is late. He does not swing a sword, he carries no badge, but his word matters more than yours. When he knocks, you answer. When he speaks your name in court, you bow your head. The priest is another kind of figure. Holy, yes, but also powerful. His words carry the weight of heaven and of law. He reads, and you do not. He speaks Latin, and you cannot. He knows the calendar of saints, the days of fast, the sins that must be confessed. He is both guide and judge, and when you kneel before him, you are not only praying, you are surrendering. Then there are those like you, the peasants, the laborers. You are not the lowest, but you are near it. You work, you survive, you avoid trouble. That is the rhythm. That is the shape of your days. And beneath even that, the beggar, the orphan, the stranger, those with no roof, no name, no place to sit at the feast. You look at them with pity, but sometimes with fear, for their misfortune feels like a warning. If you break the rules, the village knows, and the punishment comes not with blood, but with silence, with shame. A missed tithe might earn you public scolding. A stolen chicken might cost you your hands, though rarely. Far more common is penance, kneeling in ash, lashes with a switch, or worse, the stocks. Your legs locked in wooden boards, your face open to the cold and the stares of all who pass. You may be spit on, you may be ignored. Both are wounds. For greater crimes, blasphemy, violence, refusing to labor, justice may come from beyond. Taken to court in the nearest town, or judged by a visiting knight. But for most, punishment is small and near and quietly feared. Step out of line, and you might disappear for days. Or you might return, quieter. Eyes lowered, reputation thinned like thread through too many needles. So you keep your head low, your voice soft, and your feet steady. Because in this world, peace is not the absence of violence. It is the presence of obedience. The morning does not arrive like it does in the modern world. There is no sudden alarm, no glowing screen, no switch to flick light into the room. Morning here arrives slowly, with the reluctant gray of the sky creeping into the cracks between the wood, seeping beneath the door, brushing gently against your closed eyelids like the whisper of breath through linen. You do not wake all at once. The first thing you feel is cold, not biting, not cruel, but close, intimate. The kind of cold that hums gently over your skin and lingers at the edges of your fingertips, waiting to be noticed. It has no hurry. It knows you will rise eventually. Your body stirs beneath layers that are never quite enough. A thin linen shift, patched many times. A woolen blanket, heavy but thinning. And if you are lucky, perhaps the fur of some small creature, fox, cat, or rabbit, resting beside you for warmth as much as for companionship. Everything in this room, everything in your world, shares in the business of surviving the night. The first breath you take feels sharp, not because it is painful, but because it is real. The air is heavy with smoke that has settled low in the rafters. Beneath it, the smell of clay, sweat, sour milk, old ash. Nothing is clean in the way you know cleanliness now, but nothing is spoiled either. These scents are the scent of living, layered, human, ordinary. They hold you like memory. Beside you, others are waking too. You hear the soft creak of wood under shifting bodies, the scratch of wool on skin, a cough, a sigh. In most homes, the family sleeps in one room. No privacy, no curtains. Children curled together like pups. A mother stirs at the sound of movement. A father clears his throat, heavy with sleep. A baby mewls and is hushed with a gentle whisper and the rocking motion of arms practiced in darkness. The fire is the first thing to be tended. It must not be allowed to die. You rise from your straw-filled mattress slowly, careful not to let the warmth you have gathered escape too quickly. Your feet find the dirt floor. Cold seeps up through your soles as you step across to the hearth. The ashes are gray and still. But if you know what to look for, if you've done this enough, you can find the faintest glow. A tiny coal, no larger than your fingernail, blinking with the last breath of the night. You cradle it gently, add straw, maybe a piece of dried dung or bark, and blow. Softly. Always softly. The breath must be coaxing, not demanding. The flame returns like a friend who left without goodbye, but remembered the way home. Around the fire, the day truly begins. The room fills with the scent of warming air, of dry herbs, of yesterday's broth coming back to life in the pot. A kettle is hung on a hook. Water, if there's enough, is poured in. Sometimes from a bucket drawn from the well. Sometimes from the rain barrel outside. Cold, always, but clean enough. There is no breakfast as you know it. No rich smells of coffee or toasted grain. Instead, perhaps a crust of bread soaked in broth, or a bowl of pottage from the night before. Root vegetables, softened and stirred into a thin gruel, eaten with wooden spoons passed from hand to hand. Children eat first if they are small. The very old next. The adults eat standing or crouched. There are no chairs here, only benches, maybe a stool, and always the floor. Meals are quiet, not because no one speaks, but because each moment is already filled, with chewing, with blowing, on hot broth, with calculating how much remains for the midday meal. As the food warms you, your body begins to stretch toward motion. You pull on hose, stiff from hanging near the hearth, a tunic layered over your shift, the woolen cloak, if the frost outside is thick, Boots, laced or tied, hands washed in cold water if there is time, teeth not brushed, not as you know it, but rubbed with cloth or wiped with salt or left to the mercy of time and rot. You carry no mirror. You learn your face by the way others look at you. Before leaving the house, a small pause, not always spoken, but always felt. A look toward the fire, to make sure it will live without you. A hand on the head of a child. A word to the one who stays behind. And, perhaps, a prayer. Not long, just enough to hold your hope inside it. Then you step outside. The cold returns immediately. It tugs at your cloak, creeps beneath the hem of your tunic, bites gently at the tips of your ears. Your breath unfurls before you like soft steam. The village is stirring. Wooden doors creaking, chickens scratching at the earth, smoke rising, from roofs like gray ribbons. The sun, if it appears at all, will come late, hidden behind clouds that have not moved in days. But still there is light, a pale, weak light, enough to see the path ahead. You begin the first task of the day. Maybe it is feeding animals, maybe chopping wood, maybe carrying water from the well, one yoke over your shoulders, the buckets clanking at your hips with each step. Your body wakes slowly. It does not resist the cold now. It moves with it, not hurried, but present, and through it all, there is a kind of stillness, a quiet peace not of luxury, but of rhythm. You do not choose what this day holds, but you greet it all the same. Because surviving the coldest nights means knowing how to wake, how to stir, how to breathe life into a fire. That almost went out, and it means knowing how to rise again. The hearth is the heart, not just of the home, but of the whole life that unfolds around it. Everything warm, everything nourishing, begins here, in the soft cradle of flame and stone, in the steady rhythm of stirring and slicing, in the scent of onions long past their prime but still willing to sweeten a pot when cut just right. There are no pantries stacked with choices, no shelves lined with tins and jars, only what was saved, what was traded, what was grown, and what remains. The day begins with what you have, not what you want. You reach for the sack of barley, coarse and dusty, sitting near the wall where the mice have tried to chew. You shake it gently, still enough for the weak, perhaps. You scoop with a wooden ladle, the weight familiar in your palm. The grains fall like pebbles into a clay pot, each one a promise, if not of satisfaction, then of fullness. Water is fetched early, cold, always, drawn from the well with a creaking rope, poured from bucket to pot. Heavy, icy, it bites your hands, turns your sleeves stiff, but without it, the food is nothing. So you carry it in silence, shoulders braced, careful not to spill. Into the pot it goes. A handful of barley, a bit of onion, sliced thin and browned over the fire if there is grease enough. Carrots, soft and pale, maybe a parsnip or two, still clinging to the last of their winter sweetness. Salt is precious. If you have it, you use it gently, just a pinch, just enough to coax out the memory of flavor. Sometimes you have meat, a scrap of bacon, a bone left from the autumn pig, pulled from the brine barrel and boiled until the last of its taste seeps into the broth. On rare days, a bit of dried fish, sharp and thin, flaked into the pot with care. You do not feast, you stretch. Every meal is a slow unfolding of what can be made from almost nothing. The cooking is slow. Hours pass. The fire must be watched, stoked gently with kindling, stirred with a long iron rod. Too hot and you scorch it. Too cool and it will never boil. The pot hangs on a hook above the coals, swaying gently when stirred. The smell begins to rise. Not strong, not rich, but earthy. Honest. The scent of something becoming enough. While it simmers, the bread is prepared. Not fresh, not soft. It was baked days ago, or perhaps a week, but it is still good. A round of dark, dense bread made with rye and barley, often mixed with beans or peas to stretch the grain. You cut it with a short, dull knife, sawing carefully through the thick crust. The inside is heavy, almost damp, but it holds. Sometimes you toast it near the fire, speared on a stick or set upon a flat stone. The edges blacken. The scent fills the room, a comforting bitterness, the taste of hard times made tolerable. The table, if you have one, is bare wood, stained and uneven. A cloth is laid down only if visitors come. Usually you eat where you are, on a bench near the hearth, by the door, sometimes standing. Bowls are few, shared. Spoons, carved from wood, are passed hand to hand. No one eats first unless they are old or ill. There is no presentation, only offering. The children are fed quickly. They chew with open mouths, eager, unthinking. The adults eat more slowly, not out of pleasure but out of caution. Every bite is needed, nothing is wasted. If a crust falls, it is picked up. If the pot is scraped, it is scraped clean. Sometimes in the deepest cold, you go without meat for days. Then the meal is simply broth and bread, or pottage, a thin stew of grain and vegetables, served again and again, each day thickened with what remains of the last. You taste memory in every spoonful. Yesterday's turnip, the echo of salt pork from a week ago. A meal that never truly ends, only changes. On holy days, there may be more. A small pie, a bit of cheese, crumbly and sharp, an apple dried and softened in the pot. On feast days, a miracle. A goose, a sweet cake, a spiced wine brought out from a hiding place. But most days are not feast days. Most days are quiet, and after the meal, the ritual of cleaning. Not with soap, not with hot water, with straw, with rags, with cold from the well. The pot is scraped, rinsed, left near the fire to dry. The spoons, wiped, the bread stored in a cloth bag or hung high to keep it from mice. The fire is fed once more. The day moves on. You do not eat for pleasure. You eat to continue. But in this act, slow, shared, patient, there is something close to peace, something close to grace. You chew the barley bread slowly. It is dry, but strangely comforting, and for now you are full. The bread is finished. The bowl set aside. The fire watched, but not tended for now. It is time to move. The day does not wait, and the work does not end. In this world, your body is not separate from your labor. It is your tool, your currency, your offering to the land, to your family, to the rhythm that demands you keep in step or fall behind. The hearth is the heart, not just of the home, but of the whole life that unfolds around it. Everything warm, everything nourishing, begins here, in the soft cradle of flame and stone, in the steady rhythm of stirring and slicing, in the scent of onions long past their prime, but still willing to sweeten a pot when cut just right. There are no pantries stacked with choices, no shelves lined with tins and jars, only what was saved, what was traded, what was grown, and what remains. The day begins with what you have, not what you want. You reach for the sack of barley, coarse and dusty, sitting near the wall where the mice have tried to chew. You shake it gently, still enough for the week, perhaps. You scoop with a wooden ladle, the weight familiar in your palm. The grains fall like pebbles into a clay pot, each one a promise, if not of satisfaction, then of fullness. You begin with the animals. Their needs are simple, but pressing. The chickens are already scratching at the door of their coop, feathers puffed, eyes sharp. You scatter grain, what little you can spare, and check their water. It is frozen again. You break the ice with a stick, lift the pan with numb fingers, refill it. The hens cluck with low satisfaction, already pecking the ground. Eggs, if there are any, are gathered last, still warm, tucked into the fold of your cloak. Then the goats. Their bleats echo softly in the stillness, impatient and insistent. You bring hay, dry, scratchy, carried in armfuls from the loft where it has been stored since the end of harvest. You check their hooves, their eyes, their breath. If one is sick, the day becomes longer. If one is gone, the day becomes heavier. You return to the house only briefly, to gather tools, to nod to whoever stays behind, perhaps an older child, perhaps a spouse who will spin wool by the hearth, mend socks, or press a poultice to an elder's knee. The home is not idle, even in your absence. Your work in the field changes with the season. In the spring, it begins with the plow. The earth is hard, reluctant to open. You press it with all the weight you have, beast and blade working in one rhythm. The soil breaks in long, uneven lines, wet, cold, but slowly giving way. You walk behind, boots heavy with mud, breath sharp with exertion. In the summer, you weed, you hoe, you guide the oxen, you count the growth. Every green shoot is a future meal, and so you treat it with care. Not love, always, but attention. In the autumn, you harvest. You stoop for hours, slicing barley with a sickle, gathering bundles, with hands wrapped in cloth. The sun may shine then, but it does not soften the work. Your back aches, your fingers cramp, but you do not stop. You cannot. The grain must be brought in before the rains come, before the frost, before the mice. Even winter has its weight. Trees must be felled, logs split, fence posts hammered into the frozen ground, leather repaired, rope twisted. A broken tool in January means hunger in March. So you sharpen, polish, patch, and bind. Each task done not for today, but for the survival of days yet to come. Inside the home, the work continues. As well, you hear it when you pass. The thump of dough being kneaded, the rhythmic click of a spindle, the cough of a sick child being soothed, the scraping of soot from the hearthstones, the stirring of a pot that must not scorch, the patching of cloth, bent low beneath the last light of day. If you have a trade, a skill passed from parent to child, you carry it like a secret badge. Perhaps you are a thatcher, a cooper, a miller's helper. Perhaps you know how to dye cloth with lichen and bark, or how to shape clay into bowls that last a year if fired well. These crafts give you a little coin, a little pride. They may even carry your name beyond the village, but they do not free you from the field. Children do not wait to grow before they work. A boy may scare crows from the barley with a stick and a bell. A girl may gather kindling and tend the fire. Hands are useful as soon as they can hold, pull, carry. It is not cruelty, it is necessity. And sometimes in the shared labor there is laughter. There are breaks, though they are brief. A heel of bread, a drink of ale, if the brew is fresh, water from the stream, cold and sweet. You sit on a stone or a stump. You watch the sky. You breathe through your mouth. You feel the ache settle into your bones, not as pain, but as proof. You have done something. You have endured another hour. The bells of the church ring faintly in the distance, marking the midday, or perhaps the evening. You cannot always tell. The sky does not shift much on days like these, but the sound reminds you. The day moves, even if you do not. And when the work is done, truly done, you return home not with celebration, but with relief. Your hands are stained, your boots caked in earth, your breath heavy, but your fire still burns. The pot is warming. A child smiles, A dog wags its tail at your return, and you know you have done enough for one day. Tomorrow it begins again. Leisure is not something taken. It is something granted. A mercy offered by the rhythm of the seasons, by the favor of the weather, by the stillness of a Sunday afternoon when the chores are finished and the sun leans gently against the village roofs. It is not frequent, and it is never long, but when it comes, it is cherished, because even the weariest hands need a moment not to hold, not to carry, but simply to rest. In the colder months, when the ground is too hard to till and the skies too gray to tempt one far from home, time moves differently. The hours stretch, not because they are idle, but because they are quieter. In those moments you might sit beside the hearth, a child curled at your side, a spindle turning softly in your lap. You do not spin out of boredom, but out of habit. Still, the motion is gentle, almost meditative. The fibers pull, twist, loop around your fingers, and the silence is not empty. It is full of warmth, and the soft murmur of a story passed down without needing to be told. Children find their leisure in motion. They play with what is at hand: sticks, stones, scraps of cloth. A simple ring of wood becomes a hoop to roll down the lane. A bundle of rags becomes a ball to kick through the frost-hardened dirt. Games are loud, but never wild. There is no room for injury. The line between laughter and trouble is thin, and even a scraped knee can become something more if infection takes hold. Older boys challenge each other with wooden staves. Mock fights, careful and restrained, watched from a safe distance by girls pretending not to care. Sometimes a simple race is enough. From the well to the tree and back again. Breathless and red-cheeked, they collapse into the grass, the mud, the snow, and for a few minutes the burdens of their futures do not matter. Celebrations are rare, but bright. They cut through the gray like stained glass, casting brief color into the drab folds of daily life. Feasts, saints' days, marriages, harvests, these are not simply excuses to gather. They are necessary reminders that life can still be joyful, even when it is hard. The church bells ring with a different tone on these days. Not urgent, not solemn, but inviting. You walk with others, shoulder to shoulder along the muddy paths, dressed in your best wool. Not new, perhaps, but cleaned, mended, your cloak fastened with your sturdiest pin. You carry bread, maybe a few dried apples. If you are lucky, something sweetened with honey. At the feast, the tables are low and crowded. A long plank laid over, barrels, plates passed, cups shared. Music comes not from instruments of elegance, but from hands and voices. A lute, if someone has one. A flute carved from bone. But mostly the beat of feet on the ground, the clap of hands, the rise and fall. Of old songs sung without worry for tune. The melodies are simple, but they carry through the air like smoke, winding through the crowd, warming even those who do not sing. Dancing is not formal. It is a circle, a line, a pair of hands joined in brief rhythm. You move not to show skill, but to show spirit. The elderly sway from benches, nodding in time. The young move shyly at first, then more freely. And when the light begins to fade, no one wants to leave. There are storytellers, too. Not paid, not professional, just someone with a voice that holds attention, someone who remembers the old tales of witches in the woods, of knights who never returned, of stars that fell into wells and turned to gold. Children gather close, wide-eyed. Adults smile, quietly recalling the last time they heard that tale, told by someone long gone. Leisure also lives in the smaller moments. A quiet game of nine men's Morris scratched into the dirt with pebbles. For pieces. A riddle exchanged while patching a net. A shared song while gathering kindling. These are not planned. They happen like laughter, like sighs, like pauses in the breath of life. And in these rare moments, you feel a kind of closeness to others that is different from the bond of labor, not forged by necessity, but by gentleness. A joke told just loud enough to reach your ears. A cup passed, with a smile. A dance that makes your feet forget their pain, if only for a short while. When night comes and the fire grows low again, you carry the glow of those hours inside you, not brightly, but like an ember, small, protected. Enough to remind you, when the next day dawns cold and gray again, that there is more to this life than endurance. There is also joy, quiet, fleeting, but real. Home is not a structure of comfort. It is a structure of necessity, warmth where there might be none, closeness where there might otherwise be solitude. In this life, the word home does not mean a place to retreat from the world. It means the place where life insists on continuing, even when the winds rise, even when the fire is low, even when there is little left to give. The walls are made of wattle and daub, wood woven and packed with mud and straw. They do not keep the cold out entirely, but they hold it back. The roof, thatched thick with reeds, keeps most of the rain from falling onto your sleeping mat. The floor is dirt, packed hard by years of footsteps, sometimes swept, sometimes strewn with rushes or straw. It is not meant to impress, it is meant to serve. There is usually one room, a single space where everything happens, where food is prepared, where children are born, where the sick are tended, where prayers are whispered, where sleep finds you beneath the flickering of the firelight. There might be a loft above the main space, a low shelf under the rafters where children sleep in a line, feet touching heads, bodies curled together like pups. If there is another room at all, it is for storage or for animals during the worst of the winter nights. There is no privacy here, no doors to close, no corners to hide in. Every movement, every sound, every silence is shared. You learn to live beside one another, not just as family, but as co-survivors. It teaches you patience, or quiet, or the kind of understanding that does not need words. Family is not an idea here. It is an arrangement of bodies and duties and ties so deep they are never questioned. The mother keeps the fire going. The father sees to the fields or the animals. The older children help the younger ones dress, eat, fetch, clean. The grandmother, if she lives, stays near the hearth and tends to things that only age understands. Aching limbs, worry in the night, stories that must be repeated for the world to feel whole. Marriages are rarely romantic, but not often cold. They are practical bonds, forged between neighbors, agreed upon with a nod, a dowry, a shared field. Affection may grow like ivy. Slow, twisting around shared work, shared hardship, shared glances across a table when the baby finally sleeps. Sometimes love is never spoken, but it is present in a cup refilled without asking, in a wound wrapped gently, in a cloak draped over shoulders in the night. Children are not separate from the rhythms of life. They are part of it from the beginning. There are no nurseries, no toys made just for them. They play with tools, animals, scraps. They sleep when tired, cry when hungry, and are soothed with the same hands that churn butter and chop turnips. A child's laughter is a rare song in the quiet house. Their questions, if allowed, bloom like wildflowers in the field, delicate, surprising, and often stepped over in the rush of chores. Neighbors are not chosen. They are simply there, close enough to hear a cough in the night, close enough to lend a pot of lard or a cup of grain or a warning. There are quarrels, of course, land disputes, accusations of theft, a chicken found dead, a fence moved, but there are also bonds, a shared fire in the event of birth, a blanket offered when the roof leaks, a hand held quietly when someone does not wake in the morning. Relationships here are rarely spoken of. There are no long declarations, no letters, no anniversaries marked with dates or gifts. But there are moments. A stolen glance during the May feast, a hand lingering too long when passing a bowl, a promise carved into a tree, remembered only by those who made it. Old friendships are not grand. They are simple. A nod across the lane, a pipe shared when the fields lie fallow. Stories retold not for novelty, but for comfort. They are the kind of friendships built not on similarity, but on the soft understanding of presence. You were there. I was too. That is enough, and grief is as quiet as love. When someone dies, the village does not wail. It does not shout. It gathers. Hands bring food, blankets, words that do not seek to fix the sadness, but simply to sit beside it. The body is washed, dressed, laid on a board. There are prayers, a candle, the earth opens again, and the home goes on. Home is not safe from sorrow, but it is strong enough to hold it. So you rise each day beside the same people. You share bread. You share space. You share stories that change slowly, if at all. And through it, bonds are tied, not with ribbon or ceremony, but with repetition. That is what makes this your home. Not comfort, not beauty, but the way it survives. The way it holds all the pieces of you. Your work, your silence, your warmth, your weariness, under one low roof. And in the long dark nights, when the wind scratches at the shutters, and the fire is nothing more than a red eye watching the quiet, you hear your family breathing around you. That sound, soft and rhythmic, is the lullaby of this world. You belong to it, and it belongs to you. The church bell does not ask, it commands. Its voice rises through the fog, slow and heavy like breath through wool, and the village listens. Always. You may not know the hour by the sun. The sky is often gray, often hidden, but you know the rhythm by the sound of that bell. It is the spine of your week, your seasons, your whole understanding of time. Religion is not a part of your life. It is the shape of it. From the moment you are born and water is poured gently over your forehead in the dim, echoing stone church, your life is no longer simply your own. You are now part of something vast and eternal. You belong to the church, whether you understand it or not. The rituals are not loud, not grand, but they are constant. You cross yourself before you eat, before you sleep, before you pass the chapel door. You bow your head at the mention of Christ, or the Virgin, or the saints. You light a candle when you have coin enough to spare one. You kneel, not because it brings you closer to heaven, but because it reminds you how small you are, how much you do not know. The priest wears robes, linen, and wool dyed dark. His hands are dry and firm, his voice smooth from repetition. He speaks in Latin on Sundays. The words are foreign to your ears, but the rhythm is familiar. The shape of the service is always the same: standing, kneeling, silence. The scent of wax and old wood, the distant cold of stone beneath your feet. You do not need to understand the words. You feel the shape of them. You believe, not in every detail, but in the feeling of them, the stillness, the promise, the idea that suffering here is seen elsewhere, that pain earns grace, that the saints are watching and sometimes listening. You pray before your first meal. You pray before the harvest. You pray before birth, and again when someone grows ill. And when a storm rolls across the sky like the voice of something too large to name, you make the sign of the cross and whisper a psalm as you close the shutters. The calendar itself belongs to the church. There are feast days and fast days, saints, days and days of silence. Each week, the Sabbath arrives like a pause in the breath of labor. On Sunday, no work is done, not openly. You dress in your cleanest tunic, tie your cloak with care, and walk to the churchyard with the others. Not because you are eager, Not always, but because to miss Mass is to be seen. And to be seen not going is almost as dangerous as sin itself. Marriage happens under the church roof. Children are baptized in its font. Confessions are made to its priest. When you die, the bell tolls again, and even in death, the church speaks for you. A service is said, the earth is opened, a cross marks your place, and prayers follow you into whatever waits beyond. Some carry their faith like fire, hot, burning, eager to speak of sin and virtue. Others carry it like an old cloak, quiet, worn, wrapped around them without question. There is room for both, as long as you kneel when told, fast when told, give what you can when asked, as long as you do not speak against the church, ever. That line is not soft. That silence is not optional. But even in the strictness, there is comfort. The rituals hold you like arms, predictable. Repeating, you know the shape of each prayer. You know the seasons by the feasts. You know when to confess and when to sing. You know that there is a place to go when things fall apart. The altar is cold but steady, and so you live wrapped in the cloth of something larger than yourself, something older, something that tells you that your life, hard as it may be, is seen, measured, weighed. You walk past the church each day, you touch your fingers to your chest and your shoulders, and you breathe, knowing that you are watched. And somehow, that is enough. Not everything in your world is explained by the church. There are spaces the priest does not walk, things the Latin prayers do not touch. And in those spaces, other beliefs take root. Old, crooked, whispered things passed from lips too old to remember where they learned them. Superstition is not just decoration here, it is survival. It fills the gaps where logic thins and fear begins to flicker like candlelight. You do not speak of them loudly, but you obey them. If the wind changes direction suddenly, you do not go to the woods. If the dog howls at nothing, you sprinkle salt near the door. If your candle flickers without cause, you cross yourself 3 times and whisper the name of a saint, whichever comes to mind first. You don't know if it helps, but you never risk not doing it. The world is full of signs. A raven perched on your roof in the morning is a warning. A cow birthing twins means a soul nearby is about to leave its body. If your bread does not rise, it is not always the flour. It may be that something in the house has turned sour. An argument, a broken promise, a lie told in the dark. You burn herbs to cleanse it. Thyme, if you have it. Rosemary, if not. Never sweep after sunset. It invites misfortune. Never rock an empty cradle. It calls the dead. Always leave a bit of food on the table overnight, not for the living, but for those who linger, quiet and unseen. You do not need to believe it fully. You only need to do it. If your ear itches, someone is speaking of you. If your nose itches, you will soon be struck. If your palm itches, silver will soon change hands, but whether it comes or goes is never certain. You learn to read these signs the way you read the sky, uncertain, imperfect, but meaningful nonetheless. Black cat crossing your path? That depends. Some say it is a witch's familiar. Others say it guards you from spirits. Either way, you nod to it in passing. You respect what you do not understand. Witches are real, or they might be. You never say the word lightly. Women who walk the woods alone. Women who speak to birds. Women who know which roots stop bleeding and which ones bring fever. They are both feared and needed. If your child will not sleep, you may knock on her door. If your milk spoils too fast, you may curse her name. Either way, you keep a sprig of rowan above your threshold, just in case. Dreams carry weight, too. If you dream of teeth falling out, you wake fearing death. If you dream of water rising, you guard your secrets more carefully. Some believe the dead visit in dreams, offering warnings or comfort, or claiming the last word they never spoke. The turning of the year brings its own omens. On the first morning of the new year, the first person to enter your home must be a man with dark hair. He must carry something: coal, bread, salt. If he arrives empty-handed, bad luck will cling to the walls until next winter. On All Hallows' Eve, you do not look behind you after nightfall. If you hear your name whispered on the wind, you do not answer. Superstition wraps around your days like fog. Thin, light, barely seen, but everywhere. It is in the herbs you hang above the door, the charms buried beneath the threshold, the shape you draw in the ashes with your finger before you light the fire. It is in the way you knock twice before entering the barn, the way you hum as you churn butter, so the fair folk will not steal the cream. You may smile at it sometimes, roll your eyes when the old women cross themselves after a sneeze, but when you are alone in the forest, or when the baby cries at nothing, or when the fire dies without cause, you do not laugh. You whisper an old rhyme. You scatter salt in the corners. You sleep with a blade beneath your bed. And in the morning, when nothing has gone wrong, you say, "Thank you." Not to God, not out loud, but to whatever it is that watches when the light goes out, just in case. There are stories that live longer than the people who tell them. They cling to the beams of cottages, curl around the edges of fields, rest in the hollows of trees that have stood longer than any man can remember. In the world you now walk, myths are not kept in books. They drift through the air like chimney smoke, slow, curling, never quite grasped, but always near. They are not bedtime tales. They are not fictions. They are truths, told slant. You know them not from reading, but from listening, from your grandmother's voice on winter nights, from the old man with the cloudy eye who sits alone, but always has something to say, from a traveler at the edge of the village who speaks of forests you will never see, and things that move within them. Some say the woods are alive, not simply with beasts and birds, but with eyes that do not blink, breath that does not fog the air. There are trees that listen, and paths that lead you home only if they choose to. If you walk beneath their branches without offering a word or a token, just a crumb of bread, a ribbon, a whispered promise, you may not return at all. The fair folk are not kind, not in the way you wish them to be. They are not winged things, in silken clothes. They are the old spirits, mischievous, cruel, beautiful in ways that do not comfort. They live in the hills, beneath stones, in rings of mushrooms that no one dares disturb. If you step inside one, you must turn your clothes inside out and walk backward until you are free. If you take their gifts, you owe them a favor. And favors are never small. There is a tale of the white stag. It appears only in moments of great need or great danger. Its eyes are like frost on water. If you see it, you must not speak. You must not follow. You must close your eyes and wait. Some say it is the spirit of the old gods, long forgotten but not gone. Others say it is a warning that you are walking where you should not. Water has its own stories. Wells that grant wishes, but only once. Rivers that remember your name if you whisper it with a coin. Lakes where a lady waits draped in silver, who will pull you down if your heart is not true. Fishermen speak of voices beneath the ice, of something that sings to them in the stillness. They do not look for the source. They simply go home. And then there are the darker tales. The hound with no master, black as coal, whose footsteps make no sound. It walks the roads at twilight, and if you meet its gaze, you forget your way forever. The man with the twisted smile who offers you a coin and asks for a story in return. But if your story offends him, he will take something else: your voice, your shadow, your firstborn's name, and the one that all the old folk whisper of when the fire grows low and the wind presses hard against the shutters, the walker between. Neither living nor dead, not saint nor demon, just a shadow. In the corner of the eye. It watches those who break oaths. It waits beside the doors of those who steal bread during famine. It does not speak, it simply follows. And those it follows never sleep easily again. These stories are not told for amusement. They are warnings. They are maps drawn not with ink, but with fear and reverence. You do not ask whether they are true. You act as though they are, because if they are not, nothing is lost. But if they are, you are safer for the salt you scattered, the ring you never stepped into, the promise you kept. At night, when the fire is low and your breath makes clouds in the air, you sometimes remember the voice that told you these tales. You do not try to recall every word. You only remember the tone, the hush, the way the storyteller's eyes did not blink too often, as if they were remembering something they had seen, and you sleep with the covers tucked a little higher, not out of fear, but out of respect. Because in this world, myths are not just stories, they are instructions. Illness is not rare. It walks beside you, always. It hides in the damp corners of the cottage, in the cold wind that slips through the shutters at night, in the dirty water drawn from the well, in the cough that lingers too long. And when it comes, there is no hospital, no white linen room with clean sheets and blinking machines. There is only what the village knows, and what it hopes. Medicine, as you understand it now, does not exist here, but healing still tries to happen. It begins with herbs, dried bundles hanging from rafters, leaves crushed with the back of a spoon, stirred into water or pressed into wounds, chamomile for fever, nettle for swelling, sage for sore throats. If your head aches, you drink tea made from willow bark. If your joints stiffen in the cold, you smear goose fat mixed with mustard across your skin and wrap it in cloth. Every woman knows a little. Every village has one who knows more. An older woman, usually, sometimes called the wise one. Sometimes something less kind. She does not wear a sign, but people come to her with burns, coughs, strange swellings. She keeps dried foxglove in her chest, though she warns you not to use too much. She keeps cobwebs to pack a bleeding wound. And if a child cannot sleep, she will rock them while murmuring words that are part prayer, part song, part something older. For a stomach that churns, she will mix powdered charcoal with honey. For a fever that will not break, she will soak linen in vinegar and lay it across your brow. If a tooth aches, she may pull it, quietly, in the back of the house with a carved wooden tool and a strong drink to still your hands. And then there are the cures that are stranger. A frog placed in the mouth to draw out a sore throat. A poultice of mashed snails for skin infections. Urine used to wash wounds, not because it is pleasant, but because it is all they know. You believe in balances, hot and cold, wet and dry, the humors of the body, spoken of by those who read Latin and wear robes, but understood here in simpler ways. Too much heat in the liver? Fast for a day. Bathe in cold water. Eat bitter greens. Blood too thick? Bleed a little. From the arm. Or the ankle. A clean blade, a quiet hand, a bowl to catch what leaves. The bleeding is done not in panic, but with solemn hope. A balancing act. A letting out. Sometimes the priest does it, sometimes the midwife. Sometimes you do it to yourself, because you believe it will help. There are charms, too. A string of beads tied around a baby's wrist to keep away sickness. A small bag of herbs placed beneath the pillow. Words whispered 3 times at the first sign of illness. Not spells. Not quite, but not nothing either. Death is never far. Sometimes it creeps in slow, over days. A cough, a fever, the slow dimming of the eyes. Other times it comes like a thief, quick, sharp, unexpected, a fall, a burst of pain in the belly, blood where it should not be. And in those moments all the herbs, all the poultices, all the whispered prayers may not be enough. But still, you try. Because trying is what love looks like in this world, and when healing does come, when the fever breaks, when the swelling recedes, when the wound closes, you do not thank science. You thank the saint whose name you whispered. You thank the hand that fed you broth in the dark. You thank the quiet, stubborn miracle of a body that refused to give up, and you rest, because the body must rest. Even here, especially here, death does not arrive like a stranger. In your world, it is a companion, silent, familiar, never far. You grow up with it. You see it in the fields, in the eyes of livestock gone still, in the breath of a neighbor grown shallow. You do not fear it loudly. You live beside it, like the cold, like the hunger, like the wind that finds its way into every home no matter how tightly the door is shut. When someone begins to fade, the house becomes quieter, voices soften, chores are done more quickly, a stool is drawn near the hearth, not for warmth, but for vigil. The dying are never left alone, not because of fear, but because the soul, you believe, knows the moment of its leaving. And it should not leave in silence. If there is time, a priest is sent for. He brings a book, a vial of oil, and the scent of something both holy and heavy. He leans close, speaks words in Latin, marks the brow with a cross, presses the wafer to cracked lips. If the person can swallow, it is a blessing. If not, the prayer still counts. It always counts. When the breath finally leaves, no one cries out. The grief is there, yes, aching, deep, but it is quiet. A candle is lit and placed at the head of the bed. The windows are cracked open just slightly, even in winter. It lets the soul rise. Some say you can feel it pass. A lightness in the air. A whisper of warmth that fades too quickly. The body is washed. By family, by neighbors. Warm water, if it can be spared. Hands careful, reverent. The limbs are straightened. The eyes closed with fingers or coins. The mouth tied shut with a cloth. The body is wrapped in a shroud. Plain linen, sewn hastily, with care but without ceremony. This is not a time for finery. A simple board becomes the bier. It rests near the fire for a night, perhaps two. Friends come. They bring food. They speak in hushed tones. They tell stories, not to honor the dead, but to comfort the living. There is no elaborate eulogy, only the memory of shared labor, shared bread, shared warmth. That is enough. Then the procession begins. The body is carried to the churchyard, slow and steady. The bell tolls with each step. Children watch from doorways, clutching their mothers' hands. Men walk with heads bowed. Women whisper prayers. It is not somber out of performance. It is somber because death is always near, and now it has taken another. The grave is shallow by modern standards. Dug with hand tools. Marked with a simple wooden cross if wood can be spared. The priest speaks of resurrection, of light beyond. This life, of dust returning to dust. The family throws the first handful of earth. The sound of soil on wood is dull, final, and unforgettable. Afterward, there may be bread and ale shared. A meal of remembrance. Not festive, but not joyless either. Life continues. It must. The cows still need milking. The fire still needs tending. The living must live. As for the afterlife, you do not imagine it in golden terms. Heaven is not a palace, not a reward. It is rest. It is a release from aching joints and endless frost. It is warmth without fire, fullness without bread, peace without price. It is where your grandmother waits, spinning wool that never runs out. Where your brother, lost in the last harvest, walks without limping. Hell exists too, of course. You've heard the priest speak of it, but mostly you believe in penance, in trying, in hoping that the weight of your sins is lighter than the strength of your prayers. You leave offerings for souls in purgatory. You cross yourself when passing the graveyard. You ask the dead to watch over you, and sometimes in the dark of night when the wind is very still, you feel them near. Not haunting, just remembering you, too. Every village has one. A figure who does not quite fit, not dangerous, not cruel, just different, tilted slightly like a cartwheel that wobbles when it rolls. In your village, his name is Toma. Or maybe it's not. Names drift, especially when a man does not answer to the one he was born with. Toma wears 3 cloaks even in spring, all patched, all too large, layered as if he's still waiting for winter to return. His boots do not match. One is black, one is brown, and both are tied with rope, not laces. He walks with a stick, though his legs are strong. Not out of weakness, but out of habit, or performance, or both. He does not own a field. He does not sow or reap, but he is always seen. At the edge of the market, at the well, on the hill near, the church, staring up at the clouds as though they are speaking only to him. Children follow him, giggling behind hands, daring each other to ask him for a story, because he tells them, oh yes, long winding things about talking crows and kings who turned into trees and women who baked bread that sang. His voice changes with every line, sometimes high, sometimes deep, sometimes like wind through a cracked window. No one knows where he sleeps, not exactly. Some say in the barn loft when the hay is high. Some say he curls beneath the chapel eaves. Others swear he lives in the woods and eats nothing but roots and honey. But he always smells faintly of herbs and smoke, like someone who once knew the ways of old healing but forgot them just enough to become something else. The adults tolerate him, mostly. He makes them uneasy, though they don't say why. Maybe it's because he never seems to age. Maybe it's because he speaks truths without meaning to, calling out things left unsaid, secrets buried too close to the surface. He once said a man's ox would die, and it did, 2 days later. He once told a woman she would have twins, though she'd only just begun to swell. She did, and still they scoff at him, shake their heads, cross themselves when he passes. He's allowed to stay because he causes no harm, because once, long ago, he pulled a boy from the river, because he once stood beside the church when lightning struck and did not flinch, because he laughs when there is no reason to, and sometimes the village needs that. At the May festival, he dances, alone, arms wide, feet bare, eyes closed. He sings nonsense songs while the children clap along. The elders pretend not to watch, but they do. And once, someone saw the priest smile at him. Just briefly. Just enough. Toma does not ask for coin, but people leave things for him. A crust of bread on the wall, a piece of cloth near the path, a candle stub placed on the windowsill. He takes them without thanks. Or maybe his thanks is the way he nods to the animals as he passes, or the way he hums to crying infants and quiets them, as if by spell. They say he came from another village, far away, where something terrible happened. A fire, perhaps, a betrayal, a curse. No one knows. He won't say. When asked, he only smiles, and says, I was born from a feather and a bottle of mead. Make of that what you will, and so he remains. The village fool, the trickster, the one who lives half in this world and half in another. He is not trusted, but he is not ignored, and in the stillness of winter, when the wind howls and the trees, Bend like old men under burden. Some villagers leave a bowl of milk at their doorstep, just in case Toma is more than he seems. You do not know the king. You've never seen his crown, never heard his voice. His laws shape your life, yes, but from a distance so great, they feel more like weather than command. The king is a name spoken in church, in oaths, in tax records, signed with trembling marks. But he does not walk your roads. The man you do know, the one whose word settles in the air like ash and cannot be brushed off, is Father Renaud. The priest, he wears black, mostly, or dark brown when the seasons grow warmer. His robes are thick, lined in wool, frayed at the hem from years of walking muddy paths to cottages where the dying wait. He carries no weapon. He needs none. His tools are older than blades, words, books, silence, and they work. His hands are clean, but not soft. He helps with birthings when needed. He lays the dead in shrouds. He plants herbs in the garden behind, the chapel. He has seen everything. He shows nothing. Father Renaud speaks rarely in the village square, but when he does, people stop moving. Even the children fall still. Not because he is feared exactly, but because he sees. He listens to your voice and hears what you did not mean to say. He looks at your hands and knows what they've done. His eyes are pale gray, like smoke just before it fades. His beard is neatly kept. He smells of old books, of wax, of something bitter and herbal. He does not laugh often, but when he does, it comes slow and warm, like honey boiled on the hearth. He lives beside the chapel, in a small stone house with a narrow door and thick shutters. Inside are shelves of scrolls and parchments, ink pots, a small bed, and a fire that never quite seems to die. Some say he never sleeps, that he reads through the night, copying the words of saints onto parchment he dries himself. Others say he dreams of angels. Still, others say he was once a soldier who killed a man and came here to find peace. When you sin, and everyone does, it is to him you go. You kneel, you confess, and he listens. Not with judgment, with stillness. Then he gives you your penance. A prayer, a fast, a candle lit for someone you wronged. And you leave lighter, not cleansed perhaps, but seen. At Mass, he speaks in Latin. Yes, but sometimes when the room is full and the air feels tight, he pauses and speaks in your tongue. He tells you that Christ walked in the dust, just as you do, that the saints suffered as you do, that your hunger is not a punishment, but a path. He does not preach prosperity. He preaches endurance. He is not a ruler. He is a root, old, deep, quiet, and impossible to pull free. Children fear him until he kneels to tie their laces. Women avoid his gaze until he blesses their newborns. Men lower their voices when he passes, unsure if their curses might echo too loud, but, in truth, most are grateful for him. When the weather fails the crops, when fever takes a child, when a cow gives no milk, he is the one they call, not to fix, always, but to stand beside. He does not promise healing. He promises presence, and in a world where so little is certain, that is a kind of power more steady than the king's. His name is Yannick, or it was, once. Now most people just call him Old Yannick, as though the passing of seasons has pressed a title into him, like a seal into soft wax. He is not remarkable. He would be the first to say so, but his hands are thick with years, and his eyes, sunken though they are, still hold the bright, sharp gleam of someone who has watched everything around him change, but who himself has stayed much the same. Yannick lives in the same house he was born in. The roof has been replaced. Twice, the hearth rebuilt after a storm cracked the chimney, but the bones of the place are the same. It leans slightly to one side now, like an old man bowing in prayer, and in that way it matches its owner perfectly. Each morning, Yannick rises with the birds. He eats alone, bread soaked in ale, or, if he's lucky, a few eggs laid warm just before the sun touches the top of the trees. He does not hurry. There is no one waiting for him any more. His wife passed some winters back. His sons went to the next village where there is more land. But Yannick stayed, because the land remembers him. He knows its moods, knows when the soil will yield and when it will resist, knows where the frost lingers longer, where the mushrooms like to grow, and where the nettles always come up first. He plants a small garden now, enough for himself and perhaps a bit extra to trade. Turnips, mostly. Leeks, a row of beans. Nothing fancy. Yannick's back is bent, but he walks without a stick. His shoulders creak with every lift, and his knees groan when he kneels, but he does it anyway. He says work is the one thing that keeps the dead from getting too close. That if your hands are busy, your ghosts won't know where to sit. In the village they call him when they need help mending a fence, or when a calf won't nurse, or when the oven stones are misaligned and need a second pair of eyes. He says little, but his presence is a kind of comfort, as if the land itself arrived at your doorstep in wool and boots and said, "I remember how this is done." Yannick remembers the famine. He was a boy then, just big enough to carry water, but old enough to understand hunger. He remembers neighbors trading shoes for flour, women crying at the door of the church, the silence of the fields when nothing would grow. He remembers finding an apple half rotten in the ditch and eating around the bruises like it was a feast. He still gives thanks before every meal, even if it's only a crust. He doesn't go to church as often now. His knees ache on the stone floor, and the cold lingers in his bones too long. But he still says his prayers, standing near the hearth, one hand on the wall for balance. He prays not with words, but with breath, with stillness, with memory. Children are drawn to him, though he never asks for their company. They appear at his door with questions, with small gifts, with broken toys to mend. He tells them stories, not the grand kind, but the quiet ones. About the bird that stole his hat once and nested in it. About the cat that used to follow him to the fields, meowing like it had something important to say. About the time he mistook a hedgehog for a loaf of bread in the dark and tried to butter it. They laugh. He smiles. And something in the world feels softer. Yannick has no title, no land of his own, not really, but he is trusted. He is remembered. And when the sky grows heavy and the wind smells like snow, someone always brings him firewood without being asked. Not because he needs it, but because he would never ask. And when his time comes, and he knows it will, and soon, he has no fear. He has lived every season, tasted every kind of silence, laid his hands on birth and death alike. He says he is just another story now, waiting to be retold, and he hopes the wind will carry it well. The merchant is not one of you, not exactly. He is of your world, yes, but he moves through it like a breeze through open shutters, present, noticeable but never lingering long enough to settle. His name is Corbin. At least that is the name he gives. Whether it's his real name or simply the one he uses in this village, no one is quite sure. But it fits him. Quick, light on the tongue, like the sound of a coin tossed into an open palm. Corbin arrives just before dawn, usually. The clatter of his cart wheels on the frozen road is your first sign. A small brown horse pulls the cart, a shaggy thing with a patient gait and a patch of white on its flank. The cart is covered with a canvas that flaps in the wind, tied down with ropes and hopes alike. Inside, tucked into bundles and boxes, lie the treasures of distant places. Not treasures, as you might think, no gold, no silks, but things rarer still in your village. Pins made of bone carved into spirals, needles so fine they pass through the thinnest wool without a tear, a tiny bell that chimes like spring rain, soap that smells faintly of herbs not grown here, and, once, a small wooden flute that played 3 notes before falling forever silent. Corbin himself is wrapped in a long cloak that has seen more markets than your entire village combined. Dust clings to its hem like old stories. He wears gloves with the fingers cut off, a cap pulled low, and a smile that's always ready, though it never quite reaches his eyes. His voice is warm, persuasive, and just a little too fast. He speaks, with his hands, flicking them like birds, as though drawing invisible shapes in the air will help his case. By mid-morning, he has unpacked everything. The villagers gather in a slow circle. They do not rush. They examine. They weigh. They barter. Coin is scarce, so payment comes in sacks of grain, bundles of wool, even chickens if the trade feels fair enough. Corbin does not complain. He keeps his own kind of ledger, not on paper but in glances and memory. He knows who paid last season. He remembers whose daughter is to be married and who might need a ribbon for her hair. He knows which child always lingers by the jars of honey, and he pretends not to notice when one sticky finger disappears behind a barrel. Sometimes he brings news. A new tax rumored in the next county, a road washed out by rain, a noble wedding that no one here will ever see, but still sparks whispers of gowns and dancing and candles that burn all night long. He delivers these tales with the flair of someone who's seen too much and slept too little. By the time the sun dips low, Corbin is already packing up. The trades are done. The children have wandered off, sticky with sweet root. The old men nod. Once more. The women turn back to their fires, and Corbin loads the cart again, carefully as if each object remembers where it sat and would sulk if placed wrong. Before he leaves, he often stops by the chapel, not to pray, but to rest a moment. He sits on the stone steps, pulls an apple from his pocket and eats it slowly, watching, not saying much, just listening to the evening settle over the village. He never sleeps here, not in the barns, not by the fire. When asked why, he only says, "Too many stories in these walls. Best not to stay long." And with that, he climbs into his cart, clicks, his tongue, and the little horse moves forward. The cart rolls away, wheels singing their soft, uneven rhythm. The road swallows him again. Until next time. You never know when next time will be. But when he comes again, you'll know by the smell of far-off spices and the sound of a bell that rings once, then is still, because Corbin always rings once. Just once. He arrived near dusk, as most strangers do, when the light is soft enough to blur the edges of the face, when questions are harder to ask because the sky is already folding itself into sleep. His cloak was soaked through, his boots thick with road, and he carried no visible weapon, which meant you still watched him closely. No one knew his name. He gave one, yes, something simple and round, Willem, perhaps, or Thomas, but it dropped into the silence without weight. He was not from here. That was clear in the way he walked, like someone unaccustomed to lanes so narrow or paths so uneven. He stepped carefully, but not fearfully, as if he had learned long ago that to look afraid was to invite attention. Reeve let him stay in the alewife's barn for a night, after a muttered word or two about hospitality and strangers in need, and the next morning he was still there. He asked for nothing but a bit of bread, which he paid for with a copper coin that looked older than he was. But that night, after the children were tucked in and the embers in the hearth glowed steady like sleeping eyes, he spoke. It was the way he leaned in, the way he kept his voice low, his gaze fixed not on the faces around the table but on the middle distance, like he wasn't talking to any of you, just remembering aloud. He said he had walked from the south, far beyond the forests, beyond even the place where the land flattens out into rivers and long fields. He said he'd once ridden with men who called themselves soldiers, though he never quite said whose war it was. He only said, You learn a lot about yourself when you're cold and told to hold a blade for someone you've never met. He laughed, but it didn't reach his chest. He spoke of a monastery where the monks would not let him in, not because they feared him, but because they feared what followed him. He never said what that was, only that it had no feet, but always left tracks. He spoke of a winter where he ate bark, and once a rat, half frozen, cooked over a fire made of a broken door. He said hunger teaches a man the truth of humility. He said the worst pain isn't starvation, but remembering what bread used to taste like. Someone asked if he'd ever been married. He paused, said yes, then said no, then drank deeply and said nothing more on the matter. He spoke of a woman with a voice like snowfall and eyes like bare branches. She had walked with him for a season and then gone. Whether she left or was lost, he did not say. "You think you're moving on," he said softly, "but really, you're just carrying everything, just quieter." He looked down at his hands. For a long time after that, there was a stillness around him that didn't feel heavy, only tired, like a book that had been opened too many times, its spine soft, its pages barely holding together. He smiled often, but it was the kind of smile that seemed more for your comfort than his. When he left, there was no farewell, just a pair of footprints in the morning frost. And later, someone noticed a small pouch left near the hearth, 3 coins, a charm carved from bone, and a strip of cloth dyed deep blue. You never saw him again. But sometimes, when the wind comes from the south, and the fire flickers without cause, and your boots feel too light for the road, you think of him, and wonder what it was that followed. It happened during Lent, which of course made it worse, because nothing strange ever happens during the harvest or at Michaelmas, not in this way. But during Lent, when the fields are quiet and the bell tolls with a more somber tone, and everyone is just a little bit hungrier than they'd like to admit, that is when the strange things creep in. The story begins with Elias. Now, Elias was not a fool, at least not in the usual way. He was hard-working, clever with his hands, and generally considered quite capable, if a bit proud of the way he mended wheels better than most. He wore a cap too large for his head, spoke too quickly when nervous, and had a habit of clearing his throat before saying something he thought wise, but otherwise harmless. This Lent, Elias decided he was going to be virtuous, more virtuous than usual, more virtuous in fact than anyone else in the village. He declared this loudly one Sunday afternoon, while standing too close to the church door, where everyone could hear him and where Father Renaud had no choice but to nod politely. So Elias fasted, very strictly. No meat, no butter, no eggs. Just broth, barley water, and a great deal of smugness. By the 2nd week, he looked thinner. By the 3rd, he was wobbly on his feet. But he would not break the fast, even when old Marta offered him a bit of milk-soaked bread, even when the children sang songs about sausages just to taunt him. Elias stood firm. But on the 24th day, something in him snapped. It was just before dawn, cold and damp. The kind of morning where everything feels more difficult than it should. Elias, half-starved and swaying, walked past the baker's cottage where the scent of bread, fresh, warm, blessedly golden bread, was curling from the chimney like a ribbon, sent by heaven. He stopped, he sniffed, he trembled, and then, in a move no one saw coming, Elias climbed in through the baker's open window, landed in a basket of apples, knocked over a jug of milk, and bit into a raw, uncooked loaf of dough as if it were a leg of roast lamb. The baker's wife screamed. The baker dropped a rolling pin. A chicken, startled by the noise, flew straight into Elias's face and sent him tumbling backward into a pile of flour sacks, where he lay, stunned, covered in white dust, with dough stuck to his chin and a chicken perched triumphantly on his stomach. When they pulled him out, he tried to explain, said it was the devil, said it was the scent, said he thought he was dreaming. but all anyone could hear was his stomach growling, louder than a church bell. Father Renaud, summoned from his warm blankets, surveyed the scene in silence, then sighed the sigh of a man who has seen too much and said simply, "Elias. 4. The love of the Lord. Just eat something before you start chewing the rafters." The story spread, of course. By midday, it had been retold with added embellishments. Elias fought 3 chickens. Elias tried to marry the loaf. Elias mistook a pile of flour for his grandmother. By sundown, it had become legend. To his credit, Elias took it in stride. After all, there was no hiding from it. Children left him tiny loaves as jokes. Women passed him bits of cheese, just in case. Even the priest, weeks later, handed him a roll and said with a small smile, "We are all tempted, Elias." But next, time, use the door. Elias never lived it down. But somehow he was more beloved after it, not for his piety, but for being, in the end, so human, and every Lent since, when the scent of bread begins to rise again, someone always looks toward Elias's cottage and whispers, "Watch the windows." You wake slowly, not because the morning is gentle, but because your body must rise carefully, piece by piece. The first sensation is always the cold. It finds you before the light does, curling around your ankles, resting in the hollow of your throat. It has seeped through the thatch above and the cracks in the wall, crept over the stones of the floor, and settled beside you like an old friend. Familiar, unwelcome, endured. Your breath is visible. It drifts above your face like smoke, curling softly, disappearing into the shadows. The blanket, coarse, scratchy, too thin for true warmth, is wrapped tightly around you. Beneath it, the linen of your nightclothes clings to your skin, still, holding the faint dampness of breath and sleep. You do not stretch yet. You do not speak. You listen. The house is quiet, but not silent. The gentle stir of someone shifting nearby, perhaps your child, curled against your hip, or your spouse, still breathing slow and deep. The faint pop of a dying ember, the sigh of wind through the thatch, distant but real. A rooster crows not far off, its voice broken and urgent. The world beyond your door is beginning to move. You reach out carefully and find the edge of your stockings. They are stiff with cold. You pull them over your feet, wincing at the chill of the wool. One has a hole at the heel. You tuck that part under your arch and pretend it is whole. Your boots wait by the wall, leather curling at the toes, laces stiff with mud from days before. You do not put them on yet. First, the fire. You rise. Slowly, the straw beneath your bedding rustles, flattened in some places, mounded in others. You shift the blanket aside and step lightly onto the earthen floor. It is hard beneath you. Cold, yes, but it does not bite. You've grown used to it. Your toes curl, your knees creak. The hearth is little more than a circle of stones. The fire within has nearly died. You kneel beside it, the chill rising up through your shins as you brush aside ash with the edge of a stick. Beneath, you find the faintest glow, a breath of warmth, still clinging to life. You feed it a twist of straw, a curl of bark, a whispered hope. You blow gently. The flame flickers, then steadies. The light grows. So begins your day. Someone coughs. Behind you. Another stir. The small home begins to breathe again. One shared rhythm, one slow waking. Outside, the sky is gray, barely changed from night, but the color is softening. Birds begin to speak. First one, then another, until the hedgerows sing. You stand, brush your hands on your tunic. You light the small lantern. You do not speak, yet. There is time for words later. You are awake. The house is waking with you, and the day has begun. You step outside. and the morning greets you not with warmth, but with breath, cold and damp, pressing close against your cheeks and settling like dew in your hair. The sky above is soft and gray, the kind of gray that has no beginning and no end. Just a stretch of quiet, dim light that spills gently across the earth, soaking everything in stillness. The ground beneath your boots crunches faintly. Frost. Thin, brittle, temporary. It clings to the straw near the threshold, to the weeds, beside the fence. Each step leaves a dark print behind you, already melting into mud. Your breath clouds the air. You breathe through your nose, slow and steady, and watch the mist rise from your lips. The village stirs with you. A door creaks open down the lane. Somewhere, a woman is calling softly to a child, her voice muffled by the fog. A dog trots across the path, its paws kicking up small puffs of dust. Chickens cluck from within their coop, feathers puffed wide against the chill. A cough echoes from a nearby cottage. And beyond the fields, the cows begin to low. Soft, deep, ancient sounds, calling the day into motion. You begin your work without thinking. It is a rhythm more than a task. First, the animals. The chicken coop door sticks as you pull it open, swollen slightly from the cold. The hens greet you with mild irritation. They jostle one another, beady eyes blinking against the weak light. You scatter grain from a small pouch tied at your waist, watching it fall in soft arcs to the ground. They peck quickly, the sound like rain on old wood. Next, the goats, or perhaps a cow, if your household is lucky. The pen smells of hay and earth and warmth. It is one of the few places in your world that truly holds heat. You fill the trough with water, breaking a thin crust of ice first with your bare fingers. It stings. Your skin burns for a moment, then numbs. The goat nudges you with its head, impatient. You smile, faintly, without thinking. You check the fences. Tie a loose post with twine. Gather wood from the pile near the side of the house, stacking it carefully in your arms, tucking it beneath your chin. The cold bites at your wrists where your sleeves have ridden up. You do not shiver. You do not speak. You simply carry. The sky remains pale. The light does not grow stronger, only wider, spilling further into the trees, brushing the tops of cottages, painting the thatch in shades of ash and bone. You hear more voices now. Laughter, brief and restrained, the slap of water being drawn from a well, the sharp rhythm of a hatchet striking wood. A neighbor passes. You nod. So do they. No words exchanged, none needed. The nod is enough. You return to the cottage, arms full. The fire has grown, flickering brighter now, casting a warm halo onto the packed earth floor. A pot sits ready. A bit of water inside. Some herbs. A scrap of meat if you're lucky. You set the wood down, feed the fire, take the chill from your fingers. The children, if there are any, are now dressed. Faces pink from the cold, bellies empty but patient. They sit quietly, rubbing eyes, twisting cloth dolls between tiny hands. Your spouse stirs the pot with a wooden spoon, humming under their breath. The sound is like a prayer. Not meant for the world, just for this small space, this shared morning. Outside, the village stretches fully into the day. The work has begun, and so have you. The meal has passed. The bowls are rinsed in cold water. The bread is wrapped again in cloth and tucked away, hardening further with each passing day. The fire is fed once more, not to cook, but to keep. Its quiet breath fills the room as the light outside changes, just barely. The gray deepens to silver. Shadows begin to stretch. Afternoon begins, not loudly, but steadily. The house exhales, and work calls again. You step outside, pulling your cloak back around your shoulders. The air feels different now. Still cold, yes, but touched with the softness of waning effort. You are not hurrying. You are completing. There are tools to gather, left resting against stones or tucked beneath the eaves, a net that needs mending, its fibers torn near the edge. You sit on the low bench beside the cottage wall, light in your lap, fingers working with the patience of someone who knows that nothing can be rushed. The net twists beneath your hands like a living thing. The rhythm is slow. Loop, pull, knot. Loop, pull, knot. A child leans against your side, watching, silent, curious. Far off, someone is chopping wood. Each strike rings through the still air, echoing across bare trees. A woman hums as she combs wool on a wooden paddle, her sleeves rolled high, curls of fiber collecting in her lap like snow. Someone is washing linens in the stream, their hands raw from the icy water, their laughter sharp and sudden as it splashes onto another's sleeve. Afternoon in the village is not idle, but it breathes more slowly. Children are freer now. Some chase each other between cottages, boots thudding against frozen ground. Others draw shapes in the mud with sticks, inventing stories no adult will ever hear. A boy attempts to balance on a fallen log, arms stretched like wings. He falls, of course, but laughs before even touching the earth. You finish your mending and carry the net inside. You lift a stool, check a cracked leg, decide it will hold one more week. You speak little. But in the silence, there is comfort, shared purpose, shared peace. In the square, a few elders sit on benches warmed by the weak sun. One tells a story. His hands move slowly, describing things larger than words. No one interrupts. Even the geese, waddling past in their crooked line, seem to slow down as they pass. For some, the afternoon is a time for spinning, for dyeing cloth, for checking the root cellar, for counting jars and muttering prayers that the pickled cabbage lasts through the frost. For others, it's time to mend shoes, replace thatch, polish the few iron tools that remain rust-free. For you, it is a breath, a stretch, a quiet hour beneath a gray sky that does not rush toward night, but leans gently toward it. You pause, leaning against the post outside your door. The light is fading, not sharply, but steadily. The air smells of damp earth and wood smoke. The day has not ended, but it has begun to soften. This is the part of life no one writes about, the in-between, the quiet middle. But here, in this hour, between labor and rest, between sun and dark, you feel something close to grace. The light fades slowly, as though the sky itself has grown tired. You watch it dim, not from a window with glass, there is none, but from the doorway, leaning against the rough wood as the wind begins to shift. It carries the scent of smoke and damp soil, a hint of ash, and the distant memory of something green, long gone now beneath frost. The day is ending. You carry in the last of the wood. The bundle is smaller than you'd like, but it will last the night. You set it down by the hearth, your arms sore but content. The fire still lives, its belly glowing, a slow pulse of heat in the heart of the house. You feed it a few careful logs, and it responds with a low crackle like a cat purring deep in its chest. The room is gold now, flickering, soft. Supper is not a feast. You knew that before the sun began to fall. A ladle of broth left from the midday pot. Perhaps a sliver of cheese, crumbled and shared. A crust of bread, warmed on a stone near the coals. You chew it slowly, the firelight dancing in the reflections of your bowl, in the eyes of those beside you. No one speaks loudly. The day has taken most of the words already. The children lean against each other. One yawns. Another begins to drift, their head slipping onto a folded cloak. You cover them with another, gently. Your hand rests for a moment on their shoulder, feeling the slow rise and fall of breath. Still here, still warm. Outside, the sky has gone from gray to charcoal. The village is cloaked now. The only light comes from thin cracks beneath doors, from small windows glowing faintly. The occasional call of an owl, a dog barking once, then falling silent. Inside, you sit for while by the fire, spinning, perhaps, or simply watching the flames, letting the heat draw out the ache in your legs. The smoke curls upward and disappears into the black of the chimney, leaving behind its scent. Sharp, familiar, comforting. Someone begins to hum, a lullaby maybe, or a hymn half-remembered. You don't know the words, you don't need to. The fire dims. The room cools. One by one, cloaks are spread over straw beds. Boots are set aside. The nightshirt is pulled over your head, cold against the skin at first, then warm as your body remembers how to rest. You lie down slowly, every joint aware of the day's weight. But your breath is calm. The blankets, thin, rough, shared, hold you like a hand. You hear the wind press gently against the wall, but the house does not flinch. It has stood through worse. Your eyes close. And in the darkness, in the hush, in the warmth you have earned, sleep finds you. The world you wake in now is not the one you've just walked through. You open your eyes, and there is warmth before you even rise. A blanket that holds heat. Walls that do not breathe cold. A room that listens when you ask it to light, or quiet, or play a song. It is easy, almost too easy, to forget what was once ordinary. You do not need to walk to fetch water. It waits for you, clean and clear, behind a polished tap. Bread comes soft and white in plastic wrap, or warm from machines that never sleep. There is no need to carry wood for the fire. It flickers with the turn of a knob, or, perhaps, you do. Not need fire at all. Heat arrives silently, invisibly, filling every room without asking anything in return. And yet, for all this softness, this ease, the world feels faster, louder. Your time is measured in notifications, your days in appointments and screens. The quiet that once blanketed a village has become rare enough that you must seek it deliberately. Moments of stillness are often treated like luxuries, not the shape of every afternoon. You have shoes that fit, coats that seal out the cold, medicines that chase away fevers before they root too deeply. No one you know will bleed into a cloth for the sake of balancing humors. No one you love will be left to the whim of an unseen spirit in the rafters. And that is good. That is precious. But you also do not know the scent of your house after a day of baking in the hearth. You do not know what it feels like to fall asleep with 5 other bodies beside you, each one sharing the same breath, the same warmth. You have pillows made of memory foam, but not many memories of falling asleep to the sound of wind brushing through thatch or of a spoon tapping slowly against the rim of a clay pot. Back then, life was slow, harsh, uncertain, but it was also full of presence. Now, you live with light at your fingertips and warmth waiting in every room. But still, something in you, even if softly, misses the sound of the rooster before dawn, or the way a wooden spoon feels in your hand when you stir something that's been cooking since morning, not because it was better, but because it was real. And some part of you remembers. Progress has brought you so much. The pain of hunger, once constant, now waits at the farthest edge of society, a place many no longer visit. The nights are no longer cold unless you choose to walk out into them. You do not fear fever the same way. You do not lose children to a cough. You do not have to wonder whether the winter will take someone you love. You can press a button and light appears. You can ask a machine and it will answer. You can step into a box and be carried across the world in hours. You have vaccines and painkillers and clean bandages sealed in paper. You can speak across oceans without raising your voice. You can hear stories from people you will never meet. You can read the words of someone long dead and feel as though they are whispering in your ear. And yet, something has gone quiet in all this noise. You no longer rise and sleep with the sun. The night is no longer sacred. It is illuminated, broken into shifts, used up in ways your ancestors never imagined. The silence of dusk, once filled only with the sound of crickets and wood smoke, now competes with the hum of machines and the low glow of distant lights. You do not often touch the soil unless you choose to. Your food comes in packages, your water, in bottles, your meat with no blood on your hands. The distance between you and the source of things is vast now. Clean, efficient, but also, perhaps, a little empty. The stories are still told, but not around firelight. They are streamed, scattered, passed through glass. You do not sit beside your grandmother as she spins wool and tells you of the man who once saw a ghost in the orchard. You read about it on a screen, alone. Warm, yes, but alone. And so you've gained much. Freedom, time, medicine, choice, and you've lost a kind of nearness to the earth, to each other, to the rhythm of the day that once asked you to wake with, the birds, to pause at midday, to rest when the sun slipped behind the trees. But you can remember, even now, even here, you can light a single candle, turn off the noise, breathe slowly and feel, just faintly, what it meant to be still, to live close, to the ground, to warm your hands beside a real fire. Now, the world around you is quiet again. Perhaps you are lying in your bed, the softness beneath you unfamiliar after so much time spent on straw, or perhaps you are not sure whether you ever truly left the village at all. Perhaps some part of you is still there, in the glow of a low fire, in the creak of wooden steps, in the way your body remembers the shape of the cold even in a room full of warmth. This story was never meant to teach. It was meant to hold you, to wrap around your senses like a woolen cloak, to remind you that once, not so long ago, life was slow. Life was close. Every breath mattered. Every meal was made by hand. Every hand was shaped by labor, by weather, by the work of surviving a day, and then doing it again. Now you return to your modern world, to blankets that heat themselves, to water that waits at the turn of a tap, to the silence of a room built for only you. It is not lesser, it is not wrong, but it is different, and if this night your breath slows just a little, if you listen to the hum of your own quiet and find it steady and full, then perhaps the day you've just lived, your day in that other world, has settled gently into you. The peasants who walked before you are long gone, but their rhythm lingers, in the soil, in the wind, in the way we still gather around warmth and light even now, in the way your body, even if it's never known hunger, still understands how to rest. So let your eyes close, let your thoughts wander back to wool and wood smoke and bread torn in quiet company. Let the past wrap around. You, not as burden, not as weight, but as a lullaby. You have survived the coldest night, and now it is time to sleep. The wind has quieted. Outside your window, real or imagined, the night has folded itself gently over the land like a blanket drawn up beneath the chin. The world no longer asks anything of you. The work is done. The fire has burned low, not out, but to a quiet glow, a final breath of warmth that hums in the silence. You are not in the village anymore, not quite, but you carry it with you, like the scent of smoke in your hair after sitting too long near the hearth. The feeling is there, just beneath your skin, a memory now, but still close. You can feel the chill of the early morning, the press of wool against your shoulders, the stiffness of your boots. You can hear the distant cluck of hens, the squeak of a gate, the scrape of a spoon in a wooden bowl. These things linger in the quiet of your thoughts, drifting just above sleep, like mist above damp earth. Even now, your body is slowing, your breath deeper, your thoughts softer. Each heartbeat feels further from the clock and closer to the fire. This story was not meant to be finished. It was meant to follow you, slowly, gently, into the soft corners of sleep, to bring you closer to the way time used to pass, when minutes stretched like shadows, and the most important things were warmth and bread, and the hush of familiar voices at the end of a long, cold day. So now, nothing more is needed. The fields have gone dark. The animals are quiet in their stalls. The tools are stacked against the wall. The door is latched, and the ashes in the hearth are glowing faint and red. The stars, hidden behind a cloud, still hang in the sky, watching, unmoving. You lie still. The blankets are enough. The room is warm enough. Your breath is steady. Sleep is near, and there is no need to fight it. Let it come like the fog that crept through the trees that morning. Let it come like the first snow, soft and soundless. Let it come like the silence of the fields after harvest, like the hush of a child's sigh, like the moment just before the church bell rings. The fire dims. The wind rests. You breathe, and sleep finds you. Then you've done something most don't. You've walked every hour. You've stirred the fire in the dark, wrapped your feet in stiff stockings, scattered feed for chickens with frozen fingers. You've tasted barley broth, patched netting by lamplight, mended fence posts with twine. You've listened to the wind scrape the walls and the hush of prayers spoken more out of habit than hope. You've stepped into shoes that carried no comfort, only purpose, and if you've made it here, through morning frost and midday ache, through the quiet grief of a remembered fire and the small joy of shared bread, then you've survived. What millions once lived, quietly, without ever being named. You've lived a full day in a world that never promised warmth, but still found ways to hold it. You've learned how to breathe slowly beside straw beds, how to stir stew for hours without complaint, how to nod instead of speak, how to listen when the world has nothing left to give, but still keeps turning. You were never meant for this world. Not really. You come from softness, from light at the flick of a switch, from warmth that waits on demand. But tonight, you remembered. You stepped into wool. You chewed hard bread. You walked under a sky that never turned blue. And still, you were not lost. So if your eyes are still open, if your breath is still steady, if the fire in your mind hasn't gone out just yet, congratulations. You've survived a full day in the cold, without comfort, without noise, without a single guarantee. And now, you are allowed to rest. You've earned that softness. Let go, fall back, fade slowly, and sleep. As they once did, wrapped in the sound of wind, the hush of tired limbs, and the warmth of having simply made it to the end.